Blog Talk Radio.
Hey everybody, it's your girl Cy Brown, and welcome to the In Good Company podcast, where we cover women at work and career mobility. Today I have the pleasure of speaking with Miss Yvonne Singleton Davis, who is the founder, president, and CEO of Sister to Sister, One in the Spirit Incorporated, based in Harlem, right here in New York City. Hello, Miss Yvonne, are you with us?
I am here, and I thank you so much for this opportunity. It is always a pleasure for me to speak about Sister to Sister as we go through whatever we have to go through to empower our sisters in the community. So I thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. I love it. Well, you know what? It's just, I love having people on the show. You know, I remember when I was, my earring keeps hitting the mic, so hold on. Okay, so I have to take my earring out real fast. You know, we work on the fly. I remember in school, all my teachers would say, Miss Page, before I got married, you know, I would get straight A's or really, really good grades, and there will always be these comments that I just talk too much. So finally I'm at a place where I'm able to make being a talker work for me. It took a long time. I just want to let everybody know the chat room is now open, so if you're online, feel free to just chat with us. You can go to ingoodcompany.pink and click on the Listen Live button, and then that'll bring you right into our chat room. So, Miss Yvonne, I want to get right into what your organization does, the impact in Harlem, what Black women are doing. You know, I'm with an organization that's based at the United Nations, and we are about progressing all women. And on the show, we specifically talk about women at work and career mobility and income equality and equal salary. But you can't, I don't think there would be a conversation about any of those if we did not weave the story of African American women, and particularly in Harlem, into that conversation. So tell me a little bit about your organization, and then I'm going to get right into my questions.
Okay, when we started 15 years ago, there was not a lot of people doing anything in the area of empowerment for our girls and women of color. And I found that there were so many different groups of people, different cultures, that had their people helping them, bringing them sources of information on health, bringing them information on investments, bringing them information on real estate, bringing them information of all kinds of things, a variety of topics. And we just did not have that. So I wanted to help our sisters in the community to be able to get together and provide each other with the information that they had, with people that were experienced in specific areas, and that we could come together and share our knowledge and share our information, share our expertise, share where we can go and get help. And that is what brought us together. And we've been doing it like 15 years. We started out covering our women of color. We grew, it evolved, and now we started working with our young girls, our little sisters in the community who need to be mentored, who need to be sheltered, who need to be guided, and they need to know that they have big sisters in the community, some of us younger, some of us older, who can give them a helping hand and help them to find their way as they navigate through Harlem.
Well, you know, I have to say this. We have all, just as women, we have all seen and probably experienced on an intimate level what it looks like when we take our hand off the wheel as it relates to our young girls. Some of these young girls, I have to say, are really out of control. But I have to talk more specifically, if I may, about one of my dear friends. Now, nice woman, waited till her late 30s to get married, you know, according to society, did everything the right way. Went to college, then dated. You know, she went to college, then she worked. And, you know, I have to say there is no right or wrong way, but that's why I said according to society standards, because I kind of took an alternative route to get here. But I digress. She, very stable home up in Westchester, 2 daughters. I will never, ever forget that when her daughter, her children are barely a year apart. When she got married, she had them back to back. So they're probably about a year and a half apart. Her younger daughter, when she was about 3 years old, her dad was a drummer, did African drumming. And she called me one day. She said, Saida, I don't know what I'm going to do with this girl. She was moving those hips and sassy at 3 years old. Now her daughters are 8 and 9, and her 8-year-old is a little spicy, let me say. And she called me because she's like, Sai, I need to call all my aunties, all you aunties. I need you right now. She said, I do not know what I'm going to do with this girl. I say all that to say, here is a young woman who came from an amazing family, great environment, polished, is being so heavily influenced by all of these things in the media. My friend doesn't even have a TV in her house anymore. She got rid of the TV. All they watch now are YouTube and videos on Netflix and things that she chooses. So here's a young girl who came from what by society standards would consider an amazing, amazing environment, and she's even susceptible to the pressures that are facing young girls. What is happening to our young girls that don't have mentors? And what is happening to these young girls that don't have that?
It's a very sad situation, and it's a unique experience, but it's not unique in that all girls are not experiencing this. Unfortunately, you can take the televisions out, you can take the radios out of the household so that they won't be influenced, but there are still other avenues of influence because the young lady is going to school. And when you are in a public school environment or even a private school environment, you are subjected to all kinds of things. You're subjected to other girls who have not been in the same household or the same type. They wasn't raised the same way. And so their belief systems are different. You have children in schools that their parents allow them to do anything and everything under the sun, and they bring that behavior into the classroom, and therefore younger girls, like the young lady that you speak of, is influenced by that. So we have a lot of peer pressure. And I think that what needs to be done is that we have to come together as a community. We have to bring our parents together where they are able to access information in other ways that they can help their children. We have a lot of community programs, maybe, that these children can get involved with. We work where we send young ladies to camp, and we partnered with Camp Olmsted, which is on Cornwall on the Hudson. And we give these girls a 2-week camping experience during the summer months. And what they do when they go to this camp, they are exposed to positive mentoring. They are exposed to young girls that are experiencing the same thing they're experiencing. But the camp is helping them not only to be able to gain your independence on the outside, living independently, but also giving them an opportunity to build their character and self-esteem. And this is what we need to do. Our young ladies have to build their self-esteem. They have to be around positive images to help them do that. So you can help the young lady, and you can help the young lady, but it's what they are going through in the school where they need this help. There are a lot of schools, and I am a product of the public school system. I taught in the public school system. So I know that there are so many things that the public schools are not addressing. You have children that are promiscuous, and that's because they are around an environment that allows them to do that. And then when you have that and you have a sweet, innocent girl who wants to try it out and test the waters, they are strongly influenced by that. So as we look to empower our girls outside of the school system, I believe that somehow we have to connect with the Department of Education, if it is possible, or at least in the schools that are in our Harlem community, and offer our young girls programs of incentives that way. And hopefully we'll be able to get them and grab them before their behavior gets too out of control.
Well, I will say, to the point that you just made, Marion Wright Edelman famously said, girls, and I'm paraphrasing, girls can't be what they can't see. And so, I just spoke with a woman. Today is Tuesday, March 29th. I spoke with a woman this past Saturday, and she said, Saida, my daughter's 14 years old, and she needs a mentor badly. And the first thing I said, well, where are all the sororities? And it's not an indictment, because I have a lot of wonderful sororities in the Greek family that listen to this show. It's not an indictment, but sometimes, even as it relates to places of worship, we are so engaged and so involved in, working our organization that sometimes outreach is put on the back burner. And this mother was so desperate I was like, I can't really do it. I have 2 boys who are grown. So I'm, first of all, removed from teenage life, and I never had a daughter. So I'm probably not the best person to be a mentor for your daughter. But I'm sure there are organizations, and I referred her to sororities. I said, I know a lot of them have these programs. The NAACP has programs, but, even now I have your organization to refer people to. But, it's so incredibly important that we as adults, and most importantly women, get more ingratiated and get more involved in the lives of these young girls. Statistics show that teen pregnancies are down and all of these other things, but there's so many issues. If I may, I want to hear what you have to say, but I just want to share really quickly that when I was coming up, I'm in my 40s, it was, drugs, AIDS, and don't get pregnant. Well, we can kind of tackle those things now. Now we have this whole host of other issues, social media, cyberbullying. Like, where do we begin with women and girls? So that's where I really want you to pick up on. Where do we begin? Where do we just get started?
Well, it's sort of hard to say where do we begin. I can say where we can pick up, because a lot of things, where we begin, it begins in your home. My mother would not allow us, my sister or I, to go out and just hang in the street after school was over. We had a mission, and that was to come home and do your homework. We also had extracurricular activities that was given through, for instance, we went to Camp Minnesink that was a part of the City Mission Society. They don't have Camp Minnesink anymore, but my mother packed us up, and we went to camp for after-school programs. And not only that, we went to the day camp that was the month of July. And then the 1st of August, by the second week in July, she was buying trunks and packing us up, because the 1st of August we went to the summer camp for the entire month. What did that do for us? It helped to build our character. It made us into the women that we are. We have established long-term relationships. And we also was a part of the church. When you said what you said about the church getting involved, I was thinking about that, because when I was coming along, churches were heavily involved in the community. Okay? Now the church has almost taken a laissez-faire approach, and a lot of them are not doing anything. I'm a member of a church, which I will not name. And we used to be, I'm not. We used to be, I'm not. We used to be a 7-day church, not a 7-day Adventist, but they used to call us a 7-day church because there was so much going on. There was Girl Scouts, there was choir practice, there were cheerleaders, there was mentoring programs, there was all kinds of things. But now they do nothing. And so the churches have sort of taken a stand backwards, and they're not really operating in the community like they should be operating. People in the church, they're going to church, and they're looking out for themselves. And this is not only my church. This is a common denominator throughout our community and others as well. And I think what we have forgotten is, in terms of being churchgoers, is what our mandate of Christ is. And that is to get out into the community, find those who are hurting, and when you find those who are hurting, you have to give them some kind of support, some kind of encouragement, and help them to understand, baby, this is not the way you do things, and help them to raise themselves up. just by being a positive example for them. Let me tell you this. I used to teach school, had middle school.
Ooh, what a grade to have. Oh, my
let
goodness.
me tell you, it was no easy feat. You hear me?
Oh, my
and
goodness.
some of the kids used to come in and they would just talk about their clothes and how much money their parents would spend on the sneakers and on the shoes, and their parents are doing this and doing that. And I would have to ask them, let me ask you a question. If anything happened to your mother or father and they had a family emergency, would they be able to go to the bank right today and pull out at least $1,000 because this emergency cost that much? No, they couldn't do it. Half of them couldn't even respond to the question. So sometimes we fall down, and what we do is because we don't teach our children values. Somehow we got away from teaching them values, teaching them how to save money, teaching them the importance of having money. Then I would have the kids come into the school and they'll sit down in the classroom and talk about a party that they went to. And this mother was at the party and she was at the party and they were drinking. And when we left Miss Davis, the mother was on the couch sleeping and a wig was falling off because she was drunk. Now, we can't live these images in front of our children and expect our children to walk a chalk line. We can't get drunk in the presence of our kids and expect these children to come out and be role models. So I agree with you. Our sororities, we can't do it all by ourselves. Our sororities need to do it. We have women. We started a mentoring program that we had to change. We had to drop it because we had a mentoring program where we was working with young women from 18 to 23, 24 years old. Our mentors were ready. They were experienced. We brought them together for training. How do you work with these people? We brought their mentees in, and for the first year or two, it worked out fine. Now, some of those relationships are still blooming. They are still existing where mentors have established a relationship with their mentees, and it's ongoing. But we had to discontinue that phase of our program, regrettably, because the women weren't coming. They weren't calling.
Not the mentors, but the girls, the mentees.
The mentees, right, the mentees. And some of them were 22 and 23 years old. So we were offering them a service, but they weren't taking advantage of it. And the service was free. We're not asking you to pay anything. We had a workshop that we gave at the County Cullen Library. This was about 2 years ago because we revisit workshops periodically. The workshop was on domestic violence. And I know there are women out here and young girls too. I'm telling you, young girls that are being abused by these men. And when we had that event that was instructed by one of a powerful woman in that area of domestic violence, we had about 10 women show up. And so if you provide services and they don't come, you have to still provide them because you want to help. So it works both ways. You have to have the services available, but the people need to want to access those services so that they can be helped.
Well, you know what it is? I think, if I may, I remember when Oprah Winfrey gave tons and tons of money and opened up a school in Africa. I remember black people were up in arms. And I remember saying, well, that's her money. She could do whatever she wants to do with that money. But then Oprah was forced to make a statement. And again, I'm paraphrasing because this was some years ago, that she wanted to give her money to a place where kids wanted to learn. And a lot of people, I will never forget this, a lot of people got even more up in arms because that was a slight that these young kids don't want to learn. Now, I have to say, I have seen it. I have two boys who were in high school, in middle school, when she opened that school. And I remember how difficult it was for me to keep my kids motivated. And I remember my son, he was in, I think, the 10th grade at the time. I said, well, where were your book reports? Oh, the teacher doesn't care. Why do you, Ma, I write already. Ma. And so when Oprah made that statement, I kind of took her side a little bit, because here, you have to look at the kids now. I don't know if anybody, and I'm probably going to catch some heat about this, and I don't care, walk past any school, not elementary, because the kids want to learn, I feel, when they're little. But when they get to that middle school and high school, in most areas, and I don't care, across socioeconomic lines, kids don't have backpacks. Kids are not carrying books. They're glued to these cell phones. So, I understand what you're saying when you have these amazing programs and the people don't show up. But I do want to say something else to that point. We also, as laborers in the field, bad English, good preaching, but as laborers in the field, we also have to take ourselves out of our daily grind, and we have to market better. It's not enough for us to just set up a program and press play. We have to be on Snapchat, Pinterest, YouTube, to be where our market is, to get them engaged where they want to rock with us. And I think that's something that is a challenge for a lot of worthy organizations.
Right.
I have been asked, Saida, are you going to become a member of I was a member of the NAACP for years. I'm like, I don't really know. And I love the NAACP, but I just feel like at this point, like, how are they relevant? What are we doing to move forward? And again, it's not an indictment because I have a lot of people from the NAACP that listen to the show, but it speaks to having wonderful programs and initiatives, but being able to market them and position them in a way that you can have support.
And you're right. And, let me just address the African thing, because we educate some girls in Africa, and they are girls whose parents have died of AIDS or they have been killed. And these children are orphaned. And in some cases, they are children who are living with an elderly grandparent. And so we took on the responsibility to educate these children, and we started out with 2, and now we have 8. And someone said to me, well, why are you educating kids out there? We have children that need it here. Yes,
you're going to get that.
But here is what I said to that person. Our children here benefit from a free education.
Yes.
Our children here have, in many cases, they have parents who work. They are well provided for, and some of them are living quite well. All right? In those cases in Africa, it is not the same. You have children that are fending for themselves. You have children that want to be educated so bad they hunger for an education, but they do not have the resources in order to get the education that they hunger for. So when we send them that little money that we send, it costs us, I think, $350 per child. And when we send that money over there, it gives them one meal a day, and that's their lunch in school. It also provides them with books, and it helps to pay for their actual school expenses. But when they go home, we don't know whether they eat or not. But what this school does, which is located in Uganda, what they do, they're now teaching the children agricultural skills so that they can be self-sustaining. And not only will they self-sustain themselves, but they will help to sustain their community. And that is what is important. So I'm an advocate for education for any and everybody. But when you are working in the field for the Lord. Our group is sister to sister, from one sister to the next. We are one in the spirit. Not my spirit, but the spirit of the Lord. And we cannot claim that title and not do what the Lord has commanded us to do. And that means we have to go out into the world. We can't sit in our ivory towers and see people suffer and not do anything. Because your neighbor, when it says to treat your neighbor as you would treat yourself, or love your neighbor as you would love yourself, your neighbor is not just next door to you. Your neighbor is anywhere there's a child of God who is suffering. You see, so that is something that we have to understand. And, yes, our kids here sometimes, and I was in the trenches with them, and I know how disrespectful they were. I know how, what's the language they use now, how turned up they get in the classroom. Okay? Instead of them learning, instead of them sitting down and wanting to learn how to read, they come in ready to party. They come in talking about, yeah, let's turn up in Mr. So-and-so's class. Let's turn it up. And that's what they do. And they turn up. They turn themselves right into disadvantages. You know?
They
so
do.
By the time
and
they get to high school, and that's taught on that into, by the time they get to high school, they are lacking. They're lacking in reading. But what the kids don't understand is this. When they are in elementary school, they will pass them along. Whether they're doing well or not, they'll pass them along. When they're in middle school, they'll pass them along. They don't care whether they can read. They don't care whether they can do the math problem. They pass them along because they have to be socially correct. Children don't understand is when they get to high school, their buck stops. They don't just pass you along. They keep you there until you decide you're either going to do what they want you to do or you're going to drop out. And that's the terrible part. Exactly, but it is our reality. And until our children get to the point where they buckle down and say, okay, this is something I have to do, you know, the system will not treat them fairly. So I think that our organizations that are working to do, like we are having an empowerment conference in June, you know, we can have conferences with these young girls, and we invite young girls to the seat of our conference as well, because there are so many women that come that can share with them and talk to them about what not to do. And I bring young people to the event, and they are very inspired by what they hear and what they see. So these are the things. We just have to keep the positive pressure on and work to get our girls to a better place, no matter how we do it. Like Malcolm X used to say, by any means necessary.
And I think that's a perfect place to wind down today's show. Everybody, Thank you so much for listening. Today, we were joined by Sister to Sister, One in the Spirit founder, Miss Yvonne Singleton Davis. And what a spirited conversation this was. Ms. Davis, thank you so much for joining us today. It was just a wonderful conversation.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Always remember that we shall pass through this world but once. Any good, therefore, that we can do or any kindness that we can show to any human being, let us do it now. Let us not defer or neglect it, for we shall not pass this way again. Thank you so much for listening to the In Good Company podcast, and we will see you tomorrow.